Hi, today I wanted to discuss with you kind of a step-by-step guide on the home buying process, kind of a start to finish. Now, we've talked about different components of this in the past, but today I'm going to kind of just consolidate them onto one video. And so step number one is always selecting a lender that you want to work with. Now, the best way to select one is to get a referral from friends, family, coworkers, people that have gone through the process and someone that they've worked with that they were happy with. That's a great place to start. And then even once you get that name and number, do some research on them. Google them, see if they have, 5-star reviews. Just kind of get a sense of how they operate and what sort of person you're aligning yourself with. Because this is probably one of the most important financial purchases that you're ever going to make. Certainly one of the most expensive financial purchases you're ever going to make. And so it's really important that you're working with a good lender. Now, hopefully that lender is us, but even if it's not, make sure that you're kind of vetting them out. And like I said, hopefully you're getting a referral from friends, family, coworkers. That's honestly one of the best ways to at least find someone to initially talk to. Now, after you meet with them, if for any reason you don't quite vibe with them, there's not a connection there, if you will, then certainly, you don't have to work with that person. You can try someone else. But that's where I always suggest starting is finding somebody you want to talk to, and then you're going to meet with them either over the phone, over a Zoom call, in person, to have an initial kind of consultation. And how I typically do it is I'll have a phone conversation with you and just kind of find out where your goals are. What are you looking to achieve? What kind of a price range are you wanting to be in? What sort of a monthly payment are you comfortable with? And then I'll ask, your employment situation and income. We'll get all of that information as well. But I also want to, first of all, find out what's important to you. What are you trying to achieve? Obviously, you're trying to purchase a home, I get that, but we want to make sure that your goals are kept in mind and that we're looking at this whole situation, not just looking at, okay, well, I want to buy this much and have this much of a payment and that's it. I mean, there's other things that go into it. So you definitely want to be working with someone that's asking you all those kinds of questions, making sure that you're comfortable with the payment. Oftentimes my clients will qualify for way more than where they're comfortable at. And one of the things I always explain to them is more times than not, what will happen is you're going to have your comfort level payment, your qualifying payment, and you'll end up somewhere in the middle. That's generally how it works out. Once I have that initial conversation, then you're going to provide all of your documentation, your W-2s, your pay stubs, your bank statements, tax returns if you're self-employed. If you're paying child support or receiving child support, we'll need documentation on that, typically like a divorce decree, or sometimes it's not actually a divorce, but there's some sort of a court agreement, some sort of a legal agreement that shows you're either responsible to pay it or should be receiving it. If you're receiving it, we're trying to use it for your income, we're going to then also make sure you've been receiving it, right? So there's documentation that gets provided on all of this stuff. We then run your credit, review all of those documents, run you through an automated underwriting system. Sometimes if you have what we call inconsistent income, where your hours vary and you don't necessarily work the same number of hours every week, maybe you work 35 one week, 37 another, 40 another, and so we have to do basically like an average on your income. Oftentimes we'll go ahead and send your file up to underwriting, have them review everything just to make sure that they agree with how we're calculating your income. Because the most important thing that we can do for you is make sure when we qualify you for a certain dollar amount, you know that you can go out with confidence and buy at that price range, that monthly payment, if you will. And so once we get you all pre-approved, then the next step is to go ahead and find a realtor. Again, I suggest a very similar approach. Get referrals from your friends, your family, coworkers. If they don't know anyone, I certainly have agents that I've worked with over the years, be happy to give you a couple referrals that way as well. But it's important to find a realtor that you're going to be comfortable working with. You may or may not be aware of this, but there's been changes within the last year or so. Back in 2024, August of 2024, there were changes that how the buyer's agent is paid. And in some cases, you may be responsible for paying their commission. That's all stuff that they need to explain to you when they first sit down with you as well. Now, oftentimes right now what's happening is the sellers are still agreeing to pay that commission, so you may not even have to worry about it, but it's a conversation you want to have with the agent. How does this work? Tell me how you get paid, etc. Those are all questions you want to be having when you meet with a real estate agent and you figure out who you're going to work with. All real estate agents are going to have access to the same information as far as the MLS, and that's definitely why you want to try and work with an agent, if at all possible, because they're going to have the most latest and greatest up-to-date information. Oftentimes, Zillow, Redfin, programs like that, they sometimes are delayed in what information they're showing. In other words, they may show a house that's available when in reality it's already under contract. So MLS is the best place to find what homes are available. And again, if you're working with a reputable realtor, they're going to have access to all of that. So you don't have to, reach out to every single listing agent that has a house for sale. You've got someone that can work with you and represent you. Same thing with a realtor as the lender, which is, hey, even once you're given the referral, do some research on them. Get their Google reviews. See how well they are viewed in the world, okay? I think that's a great piece of advice. Your next step is once you identify, okay, I'm working with this lender, I'm working with this realtor, now those two should kind of work as a team for you to help you find your property. As a lender, what I'm going to do is if you find something you like, you let me know and I'll run some numbers for you to say, hey, this is how much cash you're going to need for your down payment. This is how much cash you need for your closing costs. This is what your monthly payment's going to be on this home. Maybe depending upon how long the home's been on the market, we can strategize with the realtor and ask for closing costs to be paid. So now you just have to come in with your down payment. So it's a really collaborative effort at that point once you've identified the folks you want to work with when you're out there looking. Once you find a home, make an offer on it, get the offer accepted. The next steps will involve us finalizing your loan approval. You're going to get like a home inspection typically done on the home. You may even have to order some additional inspections, maybe on a roof or AC, things of that nature. If there's a pool, you might have to have a pool inspection. These are all different things that, again, the agent, the real estate agent that is going to help you navigate that whole process. But those are the next things that take place. And while the realtor is working with you on all those inspections, we're getting your loan all final approved on this end. Once you get through inspections and everything, we also have to get an appraisal done typically on the loan site. So once we have the appraisal, we have your final loan approval. Now you're at a point where we're going to send you your final closing numbers. So you know exactly how much you're going to need when it comes to closing. We're going to finalize all those numbers, make sure everything looks good. We're going to send it to you, and then your loan documents are going to be at the title company at least 3 days ahead of time. That's what the Arizona contract calls for, is that you have your loan documents at title at least 3 days prior to closing. We make sure to do that every single time, and if there's any kind of delay, we certainly are keeping everybody informed. But that's something that we definitely strive for when you're working with us, so that you have plenty of time to review all your final numbers. You have plenty of time to get in and sign all of your final documents. Once you sign your final documents, you're going to provide your final funds for closing. On day of closing, we're going to wire transfer in our funds. When we have our funds and your funds, title now has everything they need in order to wrap up and close the loan. When they wrap up and close the loan and close on the property, your property is going to get recorded. And once recordation happens, that's when the home is officially yours. So typically, If we have you sign, say, on a Wednesday and your closing is Friday, Friday morning, we send the wire, your funds are already there. So come Friday morning, they get all the money. The title company kind of serves as a middleman. They'll make sure that the seller gets their proceeds. They'll make sure that if there's any HOA fees, it gets paid to the HOA folks, etc. So they make sure, the real estate commissions are paid out of there, so they make sure that happens. They're the middleman in all of this when it comes to the finalization of your transaction. Once you're recorded, the home is officially yours. Your realtor is then going to get with you, provide you your keys, and now you're a homeowner. As soon as you get those keys, you can start moving in immediately and let the celebration begin. We typically, once you close, it's at least, I shouldn't say at least, sometimes it's less, but it's, generally speaking, 25 days to maybe 45, even 60 days before you make your first payment. On a typical transaction, let's say you close at the end of April, your first payment won't be until June the 1st. So there's always that little bit of a break in between your closing and when your first payment is due, which is a nice little break for you as well. So that's it. That's kind of the whole process from start to finish. Listen, I hope you found this information helpful, and I really hope that you call us, text us, email us if you would like to get pre-approved and get this process started for yourselves. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.